Ever find yourself wishing you could kind of, command a room without actually saying a word?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're diving into today. We're cracking open Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power,
Okay.
specifically to unpack this idea, this tactic, really,
Oh,
that's honestly as powerful as it is counterintuitive,
I like it.
saying less to gain more.
Oh, interesting.
We're diving deep into Law 4. Always say less than necessary.
Okay.
And I invited an expert to help us unpack this because, honestly, in a world that demands us to speak up, to be loud, to be on all the time, leaning into silence
Yeah.
feels kind of rebellious, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It really does. It goes against like every instinct we have as humans, especially when we're trying to make a good impression or win someone over.
Right, exactly.
You want to fill that silence.
You feel like you have to fill it?
Yeah.
But Greene argues that silence isn't just like golden, like the old saying.
Right.
He's saying it can be a strategic advantage.
Okay.
He even calls it an allure.
Oh, wow.
So how does that work exactly? An allure of silence.
Well, let's think about it. When someone is constantly talking, they're constantly revealing their hand, so to speak.
showing their cards.
Exactly. But when you choose silence, you create an air of mystery, right? People become intrigued. They start to wonder, what are they thinking? What do they know that I don't?
It's like that moment in a movie, and the music cuts out and everything goes still.
Yes.
You just know something big is about to happen.
Precisely. And that something big is often the other person filling in the silence with their own assumptions. They might start attributing qualities to you, like confidence, intelligence, or even power, simply because you're not feeling the need to constantly prove yourself with words.
So instead of like rambling on, I should channel my inner secret agent.
Yes.
I can get behind that.
Think of it more like embodying the stillness of a great leader.
Okay.
Take Abraham Lincoln, for instance.
Oh, okay.
He was notorious for his strategic silence, especially during like intense debates or critical meetings.
Yeah, didn't he also have this like reputation for being incredibly persuasive?
Exactly. Lincoln understood that by listening intently and choosing his words sparingly, he held more sway when he did speak. It's like a composer using rests in a musical score. Those moments of silence make the notes that follow even more powerful.
And probably more than a little intimidating, I would imagine, for whoever was on the other side of those silent pauses. It makes you wonder what they were thinking while Lincoln just like sat there.
Exactly. And that discomfort, that wondering, often worked in his favor. His silence would often lead his opponents to reveal more than they intended, giving him a strategic advantage in the conversation.
So it's not just about what we say or don't say. It's about the information we gather while we're being silent. What's fascinating here is how this connects to another critical element in communication,
Yeah.
observation.
Right. It's like you become this like gatherer of information.
Yeah.
You're just soaking it all in while everyone else is busy talking.
Okay, so it's about more than just like biting your tongue. It's about using silence as this active tool.
Exactly. You're not just a participant in the conversation, you're a strategist, like planning your moves, observing the playing field.
I like that, a strategist. But
Yeah.
okay, let's flip the script a sec. What about those times when, let's be real, we accidentally overshare? Like Greene warns against using too many words too, right?
Absolutely. He says words can be like weapons. If you're not careful, they can be used against you.
Makes you think.
Every word you say, it's a piece of information, right?
Mm.
And that can be analyzed, twisted, used to someone else's advantage.
It's like that saying, loose lips sink ships.
Exactly. High stakes. Think about diplomacy or those high-pressure negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
Skilled negotiators, they understand that oversharing. It can be fatal.
Wow.
They know when to hold back, when to be a little vague, when to just, be quiet and let the silence do the work.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap? Like, how do we recognize when we're about to maybe say too much?
It often comes from, like, a place of insecurity. We feel we have to over-explain, justify all our decisions, convince everyone of our worth.
Right.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing. When you're constantly trying to prove yourself, it can actually backfire.
Really?
It can make you seem less credible, not more.
Huh. It's like that friend who always has to have the last word in every argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After a while, you just tune them out.
Exactly. People can sense that desperation, and it rarely works in your favor. Think about it. When you're confident in your position, you don't need to shout it from the rooftops.
Okay, that makes sense.
Your silence and the words you do choose to share, they speak volumes.
So there's real power in restraint. I get that. But how do we apply that to, like, everyday
Yeah.
situations? Like, what about something like a job interview or a salary negotiation?
Let's take the job interview. Instead of rambling on and on about your weaknesses when they ask, right? Pause, think about the question, and then give a short, clear answer.
So I'm not trying to, like, fill the silence out of nerves. I'm using it to my advantage.
Exactly. Or imagine you're in a salary negotiation. Instead of listing off every reason why you deserve a raise, you confidently state your desired salary, and then silence. You let
Yeah.
that number just hang in the air. Let them be the one to break the silence.
Oh, wow. That's a power move.
It's about knowing your worth, trusting that you don't need to over-explain. True power, real power, it doesn't come from dominating the conversation. It comes from commanding attention with the words you choose to use or not use.
Yeah, it reminds me of, like, Steve Jobs. He was famous for his, like, minimalist communication style. It's like he always knew exactly what to say, when to say it, and when to just be quiet.
Perfect example. Jobs understood that brevity, it equals authority. By cutting out the fluff, every word he said landed with more impact.
It's like every word was this precious resource.
Yeah.
So how do we learn to communicate with that level of, like, intention and impact? It can't all be about silence, can it?
Of course not. It's about finding that sweet spot,
Hmm.
When to speak up, when to hold back. And luckily, Greene gives us some practical tools to help us all become more effective communicators.
Okay, so practical tools to be more effective communicators. What does Greene suggest?
He talks about active listening, and it's not just hearing the words, right? It's really paying attention to the person, to their message, really getting where they're coming from before you even think about what you're going to say back.
It's interesting. We usually think about saying less, and we put it on the person who's talking or not talking.
Yeah.
But you're saying it starts with being a better listener.
Exactly. Because think about it. When someone really listens to us, doesn't it make you feel, like, respected? Like they value what you're saying?
It totally changes how you feel in the conversation. Yeah.
Right. And when you feel heard, you're way more open to what the other person has to say, even if it's just like a well-timed silence.
Oh, that's such a good point. I know. I could be so bad just waiting for my turn to talk instead of really listening.
It's easy to do. We've all been there.
It's like you're so busy trying to come up with your next point that you miss the chance to actually connect with the person right there in front of you.
And that's the key, that connection. When you shift from waiting to talk to actually wanting to understand, that's when communication gets interesting.
And from that place, that's when you can start choosing your words or your silences more strategically.
Exactly.
Okay, so active listening. That's the base. What else?
The power of the pause. Don't be afraid of a little silence.
Oh, I like that.
Instead of rushing to fill it, with all this extra stuff, embrace it.
Like that old saying, don't speak unless you can improve upon the silence.
There you go. Pauses, they can be really powerful, gives your words a chance to sink in, creates a little anticipation.
And probably a little nerve-wracking for the person who's used to, like, running the show.
Right. It subtly shifts things.
Okay, so active listening, the power of the pause. What else?
This is the tough one, I think. Overcoming that urge to over-explain. We touched on this earlier, right?
That insecurity.
We feel the need to justify every little thing to make sure everyone approves. It's like,
Like you're trying to convince yourself as much as you're trying to convince everyone else.
yes. But here's the thing. Trust yourself. Trust that you're intelligent, capable, that your point can stand on its own. You don't have to oversell it.
Have the confidence to say what you need to say, and then let the silence do the rest.
Because that silence, it's a vacuum. And people, we don't like a vacuum. They will rush to fill that space. And sometimes they'll end up giving you more information than you even asked for.
This is great stuff. But for our listener, the person right now who's like, okay, this all sounds good, but I could never pull this off. What's your advice?
Start small. You don't have to become some master of silence overnight, right? Pick one thing, active listening, pausing, whatever. Try it in your next conversation. See how it feels. Notice how people react.
So it's about experimenting a little.
Exactly. You'll find what works for you.
And like any skill, it takes practice.
But it's worth it. It really is.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the 48 laws of power, specifically Law 4, what's the one thing you really want to leave our listener with today?
What if, instead of being afraid of silence, you saw it as this tool? A way to get what you want, to be heard even more clearly.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Right.
Embracing the power of saying less just might unlock a whole new level of, well, everything. Influence, success, you name it. Until next time, deep divers.